Hello, everyone. So last year, I was taking this research class as an 11th grader. We were given the whole year to write one single research paper. And we weren't expected to write a 15,000-word paper that would yield some groundbreaking results. No, it was more of a school-level paper, right? There was this student in my class. He didn't write a single word the whole year, not a single word. All he did was make his topic. I was expecting him to pull off 2 or 3 all-nighters and get it done. I'm sure many of you have done that as a student or as an adult even. But he managed to one-up that. The night before the deadline, he opened up ChatGPT, he gave it his topic, and he told it to write a research paper. Of course, it did that. He copy-pasted everything, and he submitted it as his own. Now, keep in mind, I was losing my hair over this paper. I was going crazy. So that kind of annoyed me. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Ahmed, you could have used ChatGPT too. You could have joined the dark side. And to that, I say no. I could never. I'm an honorable student. Anyways, I ended up passing the subject. But my friend, he got this email 2 months later. It didn't work out for my friend. And the crazy part is, somewhere deep down inside of me, a little part of me really wanted to see him succeed. That would have been really cool, and it would have definitely set the standards for how I would do all my assignments moving forward. But anyways, it didn't work out for my friend, but for a lot of students, it does. And when students have that kind of power, they will use it. Not that I know about it. I'm here to talk about a pressing social issue. Now, it's not nuclear bombs, and it's not immigration, but in the long term, it is something that could seriously harm us. How do we ensure that the next generation of students who graduate don't have degrees without actual knowledge? Thousands of students are resorting to generative AI to complete their homeworks and their classworks on time. And in some cases, I've heard they're even cheating on their tests and exams. Apparently, they're even finding ways to bypass AI detectors. Now, I told this whole story about my friend, not because it's humorous, but actually because it paints today's landscape quite well. When it comes to generative AI, students and institutions are on completely opposite sides, on opposite spectrums. When students rely on generative AI, they rely on it completely, 100%. Like, I know some people who would cease to exist from the face of this earth if I took away their access to ChatGPT. And on the other hand, student institutions are impulsively banning them, and they're implementing strict measures against them due to a lack of knowledge or expertise, and they don't know what to do. Frankly speaking, I cannot blame either side, because what's happened here is that we have been handed over a revolutionary technology that we have dreamt of for decades. I mean, think about it. You have thought about talking to robots at one point or at another point. And it's been given to us without any instruction manual or a user guide. So I don't blame either side for not knowing what to do. Neither side is seeking a middle ground wherein both students and institutions can benefit from using generative AI. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm on stage today, to make that middle ground, that middle line, just a little bit more clear. For those of you that are living under a rock and have somehow missed the literal pinnacle of technology of the past few years, allow me to explain to you what generative AI actually is. But not in my own words, in ChatGPT's words. Well, according to ChatGPT, generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that can create new content, such as text, images, music, and even videos, based on patterns that it has learned from previous interactions. Essentially, it's a robot that you can talk to, a robot with endless knowledge. And I don't blame institutions. I don't blame schools and universities for being nervous about this type of technology when it gets into the hands of the students, because it can effectively nullify their programs. It can nullify their courses. Take essay writing as an example. As a student or as an ex-student, which I see many of, or maybe even for your job, you must have had to write some sort of an essay at one point. And maybe this can come in the form of an email or a narrative story or a personal fiction. Now, you had to put in the work. When I say you had to put in the work, I mean it might have taken you days, hours, weeks, or even months. But you had to think about each and every line. You had to find every single source. You had to revise, and you had to edit. And when you thought it was finally good enough, you submitted. Now, throughout that entire process, that entire journey, your critical thinking skills may have improved. Your vocabulary may have improved. Your analytical skills may have improved. Your judgment may have improved. My point is that overall, it had a net positive impact on your brain, right? And of course, if there exists a way for students to skip through all of that effort, for them to essentially find a shortcut, they will take the shortcut. It's basic human nature. And AI's influence isn't just limited to essay writing either. It can even be applied for maths. As a student, you can swiftly get answers ranging from preschool maths to, let me think, AP Calculus Unit 1, Lesson 1.15 questions. I'm just joking, Ms. Maheshwari. But I'm saying the technology is out there. The thing is, generative AI isn't perfect yet. It's flawed. A lot of the times, it gives you wrong answers. But here's the catch. It gives you just enough so that you can piece the rest of the puzzle yourself. And piecing together the rest of the puzzle yourself is actually key to an intuitive user experience. Because when generative AI, when AI chatbots such as ChatGPT are used properly, its ability to exchange questions and answers with the user, it can promote awareness and deeper insight. It can facilitate learning because students can essentially bounce back and forth, exchange ideas in an intellectual manner, which can spark their curiosity, which can improve their critical thinking and help them learn a new language. Lord knows what. The possibilities are limitless. The possibilities are limitless both for the good and the bad. As much as students can reap its benefits, they can also be harmed by it. So, as a society, how do we make sure that students are only reaping its benefits? Well, I think we have to take a step back. When it came to the Industrial Revolution, when it first began, as a society, we sat down and everything turned out great. We ended up with cars, we had factories, and overall life became easier. I think we can all agree with that. Let's ignore what's happening now with climate crisis and everything. Let's just keep that on the side for now. Anyways, for this revolution, for this education revolution, I think we are all active players on who the outcome actually depends on. In other words, the actions that we take today as students or as instructors or principals, the actions that we take today will impact the generation of students who graduate tomorrow. My generation, me. And if history has taught us anything, it has taught us that the blatant rejection of new technologies is not the right answer. Let's take a step back and look at this piece of technology. Oh wait, that's my phone. Let's take a step back and look at this piece of technology. This is a calculator. It's a basic scientific calculator. When it was first released to the general public, it wasn't basic. It was considered to be a cutting-edge technology back in the 1970s. And naturally, people started talking about its viability in classrooms. Conversations broke out, and major publications, I'm talking major publications, the New York Times or the Washington Post or the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, all of these major publications jumped on the bandwagon. They all started discussing whether calculators would be a viable solution in classrooms. Allow me to paint a picture for you. It's the 1970s. Bell-bottoms, vinyls, and calculators are all making their way into classrooms for the very first time. Heated debates are breaking out all across the world, from living rooms to faculty lounges. On one side of the spectrum, people are saying that allowing calculators in classrooms will lead to a generation of button pushers, of students who can push buttons but who cannot understand maths. On the opposite side of the spectrum, people are saying that introducing calculators into classrooms decrease the mathematical illiterates of society and would be a step towards a more technologically driven future. Is there a place for both computation and calculators in the math classroom? This question was first pointed out by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, or NCTM for short. It particularly stood out to me because it questioned the possibility of a balance. Essentially, it questioned whether schools could afford to allow students to use calculators, but at the same time, compute on their own. At the same time, use their own brains. Can you all see where I'm going with this example? Yes, I know that calculators and generative AI aren't the same thing. I know that they're worlds apart, but it is important to acknowledge that both of their introductions were similarly controversial. The parallels that today's generative AI draws with yesterday's calculators aren't just coincidences. They're patterns. They're patterns that we can learn from. Because we as a society have already tasted the chaos that new innovations, that new technology bring to the world, especially in the educational atmosphere. So why not use that experience? Today, I cannot go into my math class without this calculator. And I'm sure that's the same for my brother, who is in university. Well, he's at bed right now, but who goes to university. And this is because since we were children, since our adolescency, it's been drilled into our heads. We were taught to use calculators with balance. For example, when it came to classes, we weren't allowed to use calculators in all our classes. And when it came to exams or tests, similarly, we weren't allowed to use it in all our exams or all our tests. And even if we were, only in some sections. My point is that balance is key. Integrating AI literacy from adolescence is necessary. Because if the younger generation understand that if they use generative AI too much, and if they use their brains too little, they will fall back in a society where competition is rampant, where it's harder and harder to stand out every day in every single field, from medical to psychology to engineering. You think about it. Because, believe it or not, generative AI isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Can anyone in this audience give me one example of when technology has waited for us? No, you cannot. Because technology has literally never waited for us. We have always ran behind technology. We have always been forced to adapt to it. And just like how we were forced to adapt to calculators, we will be forced to adapt to generative AI. And it's better to realize this sooner than later. It's time for our educators to put in the work. It's time for them to figure out methods to integrate generative AI into their curriculums, to use it as a feedback tool or a research buddy or as a way to simplify concepts or ask you niche questions on niche topics. The possibilities are limitless, which is good. And educators should also start rethinking the types of assignments that they give. Giving bland, repetitive, tedious homework will not suffice anymore because, frankly speaking, those are exactly the type of assignments that ChatGPT can complete in mere seconds. Perhaps they should focus more on assignments that require students to use their own creativity, that engages them to use their critical thinking skills and forces them to use their personal experience or their anecdotes. All things that generative AI cannot replicate for each and every human. Not as of now, don't take my word for it. As I leave this stage posing a question that can only be answered with time, I demand the instructors of our time to imagine the impossible, to dream beyond the limits that we have naively set for ourselves. Out with the old and in with the new. Thank you.